Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Global Procurement Conference. It is my great pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker. Jose Arrieta, the Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary for Acquisition, joined the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services early in January 2018, and he brings over 14 years of expertise in policy, procurement, and technology solutions. He is a respected leader in applying emerging technologies, especially blockchain, artificial intelligence, and robotic process automation to federal acquisition challenges. In fact, Jose proposed, designed, and built the first and second implementations of blockchain technology in the procurement space, public or private, in the world. Outside of his profession, Jose has been married to his wife for 9 years, and together they have 2 beautiful children, a son and a daughter. A story he shared is that every year, he and his wife work with their children to set a summer goal. This year, his daughter set a goal of learning to swim unassisted. Mission accomplished. She achieved that goal. His son set a goal to learn how to play soccer, and he struggled a little in that goal. One day, he told his father that he's not so good at soccer, and he continued by saying, "Dad, I need to solve this problem and get better. What should I do?" In that moment, Jose said he was the proudest father he could possibly be. Borrowing this lesson from his son, in the next couple of days, we can also acknowledge that we have problems that need to be addressed, and we can ask our own colleagues for help. Please help me welcome to the stage, Jose Arrieta.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys very much. It's an honor to be here. Before we get started, I want to thank Leslie, Elizabeth, Mary Clara, and Agnes for putting this together. They've done a wonderful job. A lot of work goes into putting a conference like this together, and it's been amazing to work with you guys. I also want to thank the IDB for actually leading the way as it relates to public procurement. As someone who's worked in the field of public procurement for 14 years, it's important that we meet as operational and policy leaders and share best practices, because the impact that we have on humanity is something that hasn't been tracked in the past. And now that we're shining the spotlight on it, I think we'll be able to drive change. I want to talk to you a little bit about my career and kind of some of the things I've learned implementing these technologies. But I want to start by asking you this question. How many of you thought that you would actually be in public procurement when you were in high school or when you were in college? Right? Procurement is kind of a field that finds you. So 20 years ago, when I was in high school, I made the varsity basketball team, and I was in 10th grade. Now, I had grown like 6 or 7 inches the summer before, and I wasn't that good. And in a small town where I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, people used to call the coach and say that I didn't even deserve to be on the team, even the JV team. I was that bad. And I think a lot of the struggles we face and that I've faced since then have been built on what I learned growing up through that. What I learned is that you have to be resilient. You have to fall in love with the process, and paying attention to human behavior and your strengths and weaknesses as an organization, as a procurement leader, as an individual, is extremely important. So here's what I mean. When you have a group when you know that you're not good enough to be a part of something, you have to focus in on improving yourself. And you can't focus on the outcome of improving yourself. You have to focus on the process. And you have to fall in love with the process. Because the only way you're going to get better is if you repeatedly repeat the process of getting better. Right? And my point on behavior is pretty simple. And I think these themes come up throughout the couple of implementations that I've been able to do. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about them. But the point on behavior is very simple. And I think it's probably the single most important lesson that I've learned in my life. If you look at a competitor, if you look at a classmate, if you look at another organization, and you try to be like them, and you try to mimic their strengths, you're not looking at your own strengths. You're not looking at your own weaknesses. The more Microsoft pays attention to Facebook, the more they become like Facebook, and the less they understand themselves and the strengths that made them Microsoft. And I think that goes to the individual level as well. So I want to fast forward 15 years. I got a job working for the Deputy Secretary of the United States Treasury. It was a policy job. I had done public procurement my entire life. I set up fourth-party logistics networks around the world to support U.S. troops in Afghanistan. I awarded a $500 million contract as a procurement expert. I managed industry relationships for the third largest department in the US federal government, which spends $17 billion a year on technology. And I went ahead and I took this job as the small business policy executive for the United States Treasury. And the reason I took the job is because, and we all know this, is public procurement is the intersection of four things, right? It's the laws, procurement law that governs how you do business. It's public policy objectives. We are there to actually impact and allow for small businesses to grow in certain spaces. It's the program objectives. We're not there to write contracts on our own. We're there to write contracts to support a customer, right? And we do contracts with an industrial base. And we have to balance those four things. And we all know this as procurement professionals, those four things don't tightly align, right? So I'm working for the Deputy Secretary of the US Treasury. I'd also spent some time on the program side and built out these large IT systems to actually identify terror threats around the world by leveraging big data. And she says, Jose, I want you to go to the National Security Council, and I want you to be our representative on emerging technology. And I go to the National Security Council, and she's like, and I want you to frame blockchain. Now, I knew nothing about blockchain. So I started going to all the meetings with the large banks to understand how they were implementing blockchain and the operationalization of blockchain. And I became uninterested in Bitcoin. I became very interested in blockchain technology as it related to separate siloed systems and being able to take data from separate siloed systems, cleanse it, put it on a standard data layer, and rebuild business process and rebuild the way we exchange value off of that blockchain layer. Now, when I brought this up to the Deputy Secretary and her staff, they laughed at me. The Deputy Secretary of the US Treasury is probably one of the most powerful people in the United States. Her staff, some of the smartest people in the US as it relates to financial technology and financial regulation, they literally laughed at me and they said, listen, that's 10 years away. This is in 2014. That's 10 years away. That's never going to happen. It's a good idea, son. But good idea. But you might want to focus on small business policy. And I was saying, look, guys, there's a ton of small businesses playing with this technology. We need to focus on this. We need to encourage growth there. We can do that through the procurement function. But let me tell you where it hit me and what made me jump back into procurement. So I'm walking through La Paz, Bolivia. I think Roger mentioned that my wife is from La Paz, Bolivia. We go every year. So I'm walking out of a movie theater. And, you know, Treasury's interested in the unbanked, folks that don't have identity. And I'll never forget this moment when you have two young kids, right? So I hear a kid crying. He's probably like 6 years old, 7 years old. And I walk over to him in Spanish and I ask, are you okay? And he says, this older kid actually took his popcorn, took his food. So I, as an American that hadn't been to Bolivia that much, I start to ask him, well, where are your parents? The kid was homeless. My wife kind of nudged me, and in English she says, he's homeless. He doesn't have parents. The 14-year-old that took his food didn't have parents either. It was another homeless kid. And I realized, it literally clicked at that moment, that with blockchain technology, this kid can have an identity at a very low cost. I can do iris scan, thumbprint tag from a mobile device. I don't need a 5G network. And I can actually create an identity for him. His name will be recorded in a digital manner. If he does work and he wants to open a bank account, he can use that digital identity to actually open a bank account. Think about the impact that will have. And I literally went home to my wife's family's house, and I said, you know, I'm going to go back into public procurement. Because here's the deal. Everyone wants to implement blockchain. But if you go and implement blockchain in the banking sector, it's going to be real tough. There's a lot of regulations. But my idea was, if I go into public procurement, where I'm an expert, if I go back to operational procurement, I can implement blockchain, and I can do it at less risk. I can do it to automate administrative functions. I can do it to create terms and conditions and price visibility for the individual procurement officer in the field. Give them that visibility and give them that insight before they actually enter into a contractual relationship. And that is less risk than using blockchain for identity and money transfer. So there's an opportunity there to proof it. So I talked to the Deputy Secretary and I said, I'm going to do this, and she said, go for it. So I want to kind of walk you through the process of doing that and kind of some of the feedback I got along the way. So I walk in, I got a job running the largest contract vehicle in the world. It's a revenue-generating contract vehicle. It generates about $15 billion in business every year. About 300 people manage it. It's one single process. We award contracts. We get about 5,000 suppliers and 1,000 customers from across the United States and from some countries that we have relationships with can actually use that contract vehicle. And we take a small fee each time they place an order, kind of like the framework contracts in Europe. And I walk in and I say, look, I want to create a blockchain-enabled ecosystem to facilitate trade, to facilitate interactions between suppliers and our customers. And they said, no, that is never going to work. The CIO hated the idea. Why did he hate the idea? Because I was literally decentralizing the function of the CIO. I was saying we don't need a centralized CIO. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, man, all of these stakeholders that I need to agree to actually execute this action, that's never going to work. So I started thinking about it some more, and I said, well, what do I control end to end? It may not be as cool. It may not have as big of an impact as the ecosystem I want to create, but what do I control end to end? And I realized that I controlled the contract award process. And the contract award process at this organization went across 22 different systems. So we had contracting professionals that would have to log into multiple systems to actually do their job, 5, 6, 7 systems to do their job. So I asked for $250,000, okay, to do the work. And they said, yeah, blockchain really hasn't been done in the private sector. Why don't you just kind of focus on getting more people to use the contract vehicle? So then, we were competing with other contract vehicles, right? We had competitors, and our market share kept getting smaller, and their market share kept getting bigger. And then one of our largest suppliers left us. They said, we're not going to do business with you anymore. We have no visibility into the data associated with orders occurring off the contract vehicle. We're going to do business with one of your competitors. And I said, guys, let me try to actually build a prototype. I'm not going to change the way we function. And I'm not asking to build consensus. I will take all the responsibility if this doesn't work. But let me build a prototype to see so I can show you how it will work. I need $250,000. I said, we'll give you $149,000. I'm like, are you kidding me? So we took that $149,000, and in 7 weeks, we took a contract award time that was 110 days. We automated the process, and we got it down in the prototype to 10 days. We took a modification process. You want to change terms and conditions or pricing on your contract? It took 64 days, and we got it down to 24 hours. Now, we didn't have robots come and sit at the procurement professional's desk and do their jobs, guys. What we did is we automated the administrative functions. We automated financial responsibility determination. It took 35 days when we had multiple people doing it. We automated it so that it took a second. The information that was submitted was auto-analyzed. We have to create this negotiation memorandum by law in the United States to drive our negotiations with the supplier. We used robotic processing automation off the blockchain to pre-create the negotiation memorandum the second the information was submitted. Now the memorandum was created in 1 day. Historically, it took 15 days to actually create that. From a modification perspective, we auto-analyzed prices that were submitted and flagged prices that were too high based on all the pricing information we had in this giant portfolio of suppliers. So we could actually point the procurement officer and say, here are the areas you need to focus. Here is a company that their financial responsibility determination is a bit off. Here are some of the negotiation objectives that you should focus in on. We didn't do their job. We took away the administrative work and organized it so they could digest it quicker and do their job. And I thought, I did it. It works. It's better for the industry base. Remember the 4 things that you have to balance as a public procurement professional. It's better for the industry base. It's better for the customer. They can award contracts quicker. It's better for me. It's aligned with federal law. We did it. And then I went and talked to the CIO. And the CIO says, well, this is a different business model than the current business model we're operating under. And he had every right to have that opinion. And we started to kind of work through, as a team, how we could implement this and leverage this in our ecosystem. And while that was happening, this other department in the United States called the Department of Health and Human Services called me and they said, you know that blockchain thing you did? We'd like you to come over here and try to do it, not only for acquisition, but in our mission space, solving cancer, eliminating sepsis, which is a disease that's killing lots of Americans, sharing data. And I decided to take the job. So I started there in January of this year, 2018, and the same issues. But in this job, I actually had a budget, a real budget. And on April 17th, I said, I'm going to automate our procurement function on a blockchain. I'm going to create visibility for all of our suppliers when they do business with us. So every time they do business with us, they have a historical record of all their interactions with us, right? I'm going to auto-populate procurement plans and market research documents based on the $26 billion we spend every year and the 100,000 contracts that we award every year. That's what I'm responsible for. I'm going to pull that data up, and I'm going to automate that information. Because if you are a cancer researcher, if you are one of the top cancer researchers in the world, and you come to HHS to solve cancer, it is obscene that we expect you to learn the federal acquisition regulation which drives procurement policy in the United States. And you say, well, if you're a public servant, you should take the time to learn that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you should have to take the time as a cancer expert that's trying to eliminate cancer to spend your hours researching how to write a requirement to award a federal contract. Now, I do think that if I give you the information on all the services and products that were historically purchased to support cancer research, you should be able to read that information, and you should be able to eliminate the things that you don't need, write out the risks that you see as it relates to whatever your plan is, and state what your objectives are. And that's exactly what we're doing. And we have all of this data from 5 different contract writing systems that we're putting on a blockchain layer, and we're auto-analyzing that information for that cancer researcher. Here's the other thing that we did that was really cool. We spend about $10 billion a year on products of the $26 billion. We spend $16, $17 billion a year on services. I haven't touched services yet, but we're going there next. The engineering team's actually working on it right now. So we said, let's analyze the product spend. Let's actually read terms and conditions, and let's look at historical prices paid in the procurement function. 100,000 contracts every year facilitates $26 billion in spend. I'm going to take all that data. We're taking all that data off 5 contract writing systems. We're taking every single page of data. We're cleansing the information. What do I mean by cleansing? Bad data in is bad data out. So I'm taking like version, v.6, and VER, and I'm using machine learning algorithms to put that in a structure and say that that means version on a blockchain. And I'm automating the planning process, like I said, for that cancer researcher, and I'm automating the market research to push that information from the cancer research. So that's what we're doing with product categories at HHS. We're auto-analyzing terms and conditions and pricing. We're using natural language processing and artificial intelligence, a soft form of automated machine learning, to auto-analyze that information, and then we're dashboarding it. We're saying lowest price, highest price, medium price. We're bucketing it by terms and conditions that we've pre-analyzed, and we're pushing that information to the contract specialists and contracting officers, the procurement professionals that actually enter into contracts in the U.S. government space. We're pushing that information to them at the point of purchase so that they can use that to negotiate prices, and they can use that to negotiate terms and conditions. Think about the impact that's going to have. Now, let me walk you through the business plan a little bit. Because what I'm telling you is, number one, be resilient. Everybody in HHS, they let me do it because I had these videos and these demos. Their first question would be, did this really work at GSA? I was like, do you want to see the video, the demo? You have it? Yeah, no, this isn't a theory. We actually have a prototype and demo. Would you like me to send you that? I can actually send it to you. You can log in and we recorded someone actually using this. Oh, yeah. That took only 7 weeks. And then even when we said we were going to do it at HHS, we had a lot of folks that didn't think it would work. And then we showed this price analysis, terms and conditions analysis capability. We showed the functionality. You can't argue with the fact that the functionality is there and that it's providing value. And the way that we did that is we didn't go top down and try to create consensus. And look, guys, I have nothing against consensus. I really don't. But I don't care about it in this instance. Because if I try to create consensus on a theory that not everybody understands, we'll spend 2 years understanding it. But if I create something that you can touch and feel, which is what I just described at HHS, a prototype and I bring it to you at a very low cost. What we did at HHS cost about $450,000 for those of you that think this is a super, and we didn't disrupt any of the existing systems in our environment. The business function still works. All we're doing is providing more information back. At some point, we'll retire all those systems. And I just mentioned 5, we actually have about 60. If we start having a conversation about a prototype, it's much easier to get past the theoretical discussion and start to talk about the functionality that the procurement professional, that the program professional, that the legal professional needs to actually do their job, and how we can use that to add value. So 1, be resilient. Everybody's going to tell you it doesn't work. 2, build a prototype. If you have a little bit of funds, $50,000, $100,000, go and build a prototype and show it to people and get feedback on it. And don't build it in a manner that it won't actually show any value unless you invest another $500,000. If they killed and took away my funding right now, I'd be able to push prices paid and terms and conditions information directly to my contracting professionals and add that piece of value. And listen to the business fundamentals on this. We're micromanaging investment in 3 areas. Every dollar that goes into analyzing terms and conditions and prices paid to lower cost, we're tracking. And we're tracking a return on investment for those dollars that go in. Every dollar that improves our processing time, we're tracking. And we're measuring a return on investment for how much quicker our process goes, our procurement process. And every dollar we put into our infrastructure, because let me tell you guys, blockchain is infrastructure. Every dollar that goes into infrastructure, we're tracking. We're taking a procurement system that facilitates 100,000 transactions and $26 billion in business, and we're moving it to a cloud environment. We're taking a business process that takes anywhere between 110 days to 3 years to award a contract, and we're cutting out 90% of the processing time. Because we're not making you guys validate and verify that the firm exists. We're not making you guys do financial responsibility determination. We're taking away the administrative work so that you can focus on the critical thinking tasks. And then we're auto-analyzing terms and conditions and prices paid. So we can provide that information to the contracting professional. So we can empower them to make a decision. And our return on investment for a $33.7 million investment, which is to modernize the entire function, is 896%. But here's the deal. The prototype that I spent $450,000, $475,000 on already achieves every objective in our business case. So I have to go back and recalculate the ROI. But I'm afraid to do it because I don't think any of the oversight officials will actually believe me that that's the return on investment. So what I do is I show them the prototype. Micromanage your investment if you're going to try something like this. Even if you're just investing $25,000 in automating a small process, micromanage your investment so that you can quantify the return and the value that it's driving. Now let me tell you what's happening at HHS. You know, we go all over the world and we collect specimen data on Ebola and share it with the research community in the United States to find a cure. They came to me and they said, Jose, can we use your blockchain to do that? We want an immutable timestamp record of Ebola specimens from Liberia. I'm making that up. I don't know if there's an issue in Liberia right now, as an example. We'd like to put it on a digital ledger so that we can instantaneously share it with the research community. I am the procurement guy that's actually helping them build the infrastructure to facilitate that, because disruptive change and transformation in the procurement space is much easier to do than it is when you're dealing with individuals. So the model in and of itself is extendable. The other thing that's happening right now is they're saying, you know, we have a lot of employees at HHS, like 100,000, and a lot of programs, probably like 500 programs that we support as procurement professionals. I have about 5,000 people that work for me. And they're saying, Jose, we'd like to put HR data on your digital ledger. I said, oh, that's a good idea. Why am I saying that's a good idea? Because now I can look at a program and I can say, you had the ability to hire 5 FTEs, and you didn't hire 5 FTEs. You went and you awarded a contract with that money to have contractors do the work. Because we can take data from the procurement systems and from the HR systems, and we can start to perform that analysis. Think about the impact that has. We are inverting the model of procurement. We are no longer saying, you will follow this process. We are saying we will create a standardized data set that we cleanse as the data comes in, and we will allow you to decentralize and execute, within federal law, of course, in a manner that you wish, off of that standardized, immutable data set. And because blockchain is a business network, I now have a governing capability over 5,000 employees and exactly what they're doing at any moment in time, because they're all operating on a business network. And because I'm recording, because I have an understanding of their behaviors, when they buy certain products, where do they look for information? What information do they delete from the pre-developed procurement plan and from the pre-developed market research document that they say is not applicable? And I'm using that insight to actually make the function of procurement more intelligent. And for those of you that think that's crazy, I get you. I've sat there before. It's functional right now. And it took 8 weeks to build and $470,000. So I'll leave you with this. I certainly don't want to go over my time. I don't want to make the ladies that plan this, they run a tight ship. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll leave you with this. If you go back to your office and you think this is insane and it will never work, fine. But if you actually want to try to transform and to use some of these technologies, take what you learn here, pick a business process, come up with a business plan at a low cost, and see if you can identify the money to make that change, even if it's something as small as financial responsibility determination and automating it, even if it's something small as ingesting prices paid data for 2 categories of products and analyzing it. Because the impact that that will have on the organization is huge, because our little prototype is changing all administrative functions of health and human services are going to start leveraging a digital ledger. I actually missed a meeting this morning where that's what they want to talk about, because I'm here with you today. And be resilient when you do it. There's going to be a lot of people that disagree with you. The first time I presented that I was going to do this at the job before this job, I'll never forget there was a guy there in the front row. His name was Willie. If he's watching, I'm sorry, Willie, but I'll never forget this. I apologize. And he rolled his eyes and literally said to the guy next to him, that'll never work. So 7 weeks later, when we had designed the prototype, I got up on stage. No one knew it was designed. I said, guys, I told you we were going to try this prototype. And I started off somber, you know. I said, guys, I told you we were going to do this prototype. And then I put up a list of names, because we did human-centered design. We actually sat down with the workforce. We're sitting with the workforce, and we're watching how they work. We're not asking them what they need. We're watching that they have to click submit 25 times. We're watching that they log into 7 or 8 different systems to do their job, because people don't think that way. Sometimes they don't tell you that. So I said, these are all the names of the folks that help us. And now I want to show you what we built in 7 weeks. Willie, I remember that you rolled your eyes when I said I was going to do this 7 weeks ago. And he's not here. So I know I got to go, so I'm going to leave you. You know, when I actually never met my father until I was 25 years old. So that's why my Spanish is pretty bad, but my name is Jose Luis Arrieta. So, you know, before, and it's about risk, and it's about nerves, and it's about uncertainty. So I met my father when I was 25 in Woodland Hills, California, and before I went to meet him, I was nervous, as anyone would be, right? I didn't know what to expect. And my mom said something to me that I'll never forget. She said, take those nerves, and instead of being afraid, instead of putting your head in the sand, think of it as an opportunity. Think of it as excitement. And so before I walked out here today, I said I'm not going to use a speech. I'm just going to kind of wing it. And that's what I thought. So if you're going to take a risk, instead of putting your head in the sand and thinking about all the things that could go wrong, think of it as an opportunity. Think of the nerves in your stomach as excitement. And let me know if you need any help. I'm happy to provide any insight I can. Leslie Elizabeth has my email number.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Will Sheldon Stewart please work your way to the left side entrance of the stage? Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again. My name is Roger Osorio, and I'm excited to be the catalyst of ceremonies over the next couple of days for all of you. I'm a learning strategist, an executive coach, and a speaker. By day, I work for IBM, where I have the opportunity and the privilege to coach leaders around the world, train and educate aspiring executive coaches, and also develop technical education content for developer communities outside of IBM. Over the next 2 days, it is my mission to guide all of you on a journey that simply begins here with this event and extends all the way back to when you go back to your respective organizations and countries. The organizers and sponsors of this event had a very bold mission in mind, bold results for all of you. And they are the following. 1, they want all of you to identify an opportunity for and commit to lead a project to implement one new procurement technology. 2, connect with and initiate one cross-regional or cross-sector engagement or project over the next 30 days. And 3, identify an opportunity to access the technical and/or monetary resources available to you from NDBs in the interest of driving a new technology project in the area of procurement. Now, that's what they challenge all of you to do. To that end, their promise to you is the following, that over the next 2 days, you will learn how the digital transformation is revolutionizing the way procurement is executed and how you will be able to lead some of that change in your respective organizations or countries to drive value. They also promise that you will learn how you can influence the digital transformation in procurement and realistically drive that implementation in your organization. You will have the opportunity to exchange experiences, regional initiatives, and lessons learned among countries from diverse parts of the world. And lastly, we promise to inspire and motivate you to accept the digital transformation challenge and use disruptive technologies to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency of your procurement strategies. Now, that is no small mission that this team has signed up for. And to that end, over the next 2 days, we have a panel, or many panels, of international experts that are coming together to present and debate topics relevant to procurement modernization. And we will conclude by making the ultimate commitment and signing the Digital Revolution in Public Procurement Declaration. Now, in the interest of keeping all of us focused and making sure that we can make good and deliver on these outcomes that extend beyond this event, I want you to keep 5 questions in mind that are going to be answered over the next couple of days. 1, how will disruptive technologies and innovation be used to improve public procurement management? 2, how can you adopt and implement innovative technologies and promote the digital transformation of procurement in low, medium, and high capacity countries? 3, how can you overcome the gap between your realities and the latest advancements in technology? 4, what is the empirical evidence that supports and backs the benefits of this new technology? And 5, what are the lessons learned by MDBs and countries from all regions in terms of procurement practices and different technology implementations? These are 5 key questions that throughout the panels, the keynotes, and the other presentations, you will be able to answer. And I want you to stay focused on those 5 questions. Now, to that end, and to make sure that you're doing your part, I have 3 challenges that I want to extend to all of you to make this event a massive success. 1, I want you to identify an idea, strategy, or method that you can borrow from a colleague here in the audience over the next couple of days. And in that same way, I want you to come up and identify with an idea, strategy, or method or approach that you can share with this community over the next couple of days. The second challenge, I challenge you to book 3 follow-up meetings to be held within the next 30 days with someone that you meet here in the next 2 days. And lastly, I challenge you to identify one opportunity to test perhaps a new approach to procurement or technology in your country or organization. If you accept these challenges, you will make sure that you not only participate actively in this event, but that the values, the benefit, and the value of this event extends beyond the next 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next few days, I want you to listen and engage with purpose. I want you to listen for the ideas, the strategies, and the resources that will help you overcome the challenges that you're facing in your respective organizations and countries. Disruption can be positive or negative, and it ultimately depends on you. Technology can be a very powerful tool that helps us address old problems in new and effective ways. However, technology can also give way to new problems and challenges. And the more disruptive that technology is, the greater some of those new problems can be. This is why it is important that we are not passive in our efforts to transform procurement. We cannot wait for transformation to happen to us. We need to lead this transformation so that we can ensure that it meets our unique needs and desires for our respective countries and organizations. Either we use technology in a disruptive way, or technology can disrupt us. This conference is a unique opportunity to connect with top experts in the field. And just because you're not speaking doesn't mean that you're not an expert as well. All of you bring a lot to this event, and it is important that this community engages with each other. Share ideas with each other, learn from each other, form collaborative relationships that extend beyond the next 2 days, and initiate your respective transformations. We need to be engaged, proactive, and fully present over the next 2 days if we are to prepare ourselves to lead the disruptive use of technology for the betterment of our respective governments and organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, make today the beginning of your digital transformation. Thank you very much.